Hey everybody, I have a video here for you today. I got a few free minutes, so I thought I would check something off the old list. Now, I have made videos on many different sites around ancient Egypt, and one of the most important ones I guess I have not talked about yet, and that is ancient Memphis. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And this is located, I believe, about 15-20 miles south of the Great Pyramids. And I'm going to read about it in just a second here, but in the middle of this village is really all that remains of ancient Memphis, and this was an important center for Egyptian pharaohs stretching for at least 2,500 years. And I believe a lot of the secrets of ancient Egypt were held in the archives that were made available to pharaohs stretching for 2,500 years, going all the way back to the Old Kingdom. And I'm sure pre-dynastic periods, times that are not written about but are mentioned and regarded as mythological, things such as the Turin Kings List and the Palermo Stone, which has kings listed that stretch back for thousands of years farther than the standard model of history says. So I believe the pharaohs were privy to some secrets of ancient Egypt, and I'm just going to do a little reading here. This is Ancient Egypt Online. It says, Memphis is the ancient Egyptian city that served not just as an important city, but also as the capital of ancient Egypt during the Old Kingdom. It was home of many pharaohs, including King Tutankhamun, and it remained an essential city throughout history until its demise around the time of the rise of Christianity after the 1st century AD. And it says Memphis is located to the south of the Nile River Delta on the west bank. It sits about 15 miles south of the modern city of Cairo. And it says Memphis was founded by King Menes, and I believe he is the first pharaoh of the first dynasty, because that's just as far back as the standard model history goes, so that is what they say. It says he unified Upper and Lower Egypt into one monarchy. The first name for the city was White Walls, which likely derived from the whitewashed brick of Menes' palace. Memphis was such an important city during the Old Kingdom that many pharaohs and other powerful people chose desert bluffs here as their burial place. Memphis is the cult center of Ptah, a creator god in ancient Egyptian religion, one of the most ancient and important gods. He was also patron of craftsmen, which was appropriate because Memphis, in its heyday, thrived as the center for commerce and trade. And I have talked about Ptah and being the god of craftsmen in ancient Egyptian times. This is a video I made maybe a couple years ago. Statues of Ptah were given to the best artists and craftsmen of the time, and I believe that is where the whole Oscar statue derives from. Just thought I would mention that. Now I want to read briefly from Graham Hancock's Magicians of the Gods book, and I am just going to read a brief couple paragraphs here. It says, this book which descended from the sky. We've seen that there are many passages in the Edfu building text which tell us that those among the gods of the early primeval age who survived the flood that destroyed their former homeland set about wandering the world with the purposes of establishing new sacred domains in suitable locations. One passage names a specific location that some of these gods found their way to, the first place they settled in Egypt. This turns out not to have been Edfu in Upper, which is southern Egypt, but rather the city that the Greeks later came to know as Heracleopolis, which is located in Lower, which is northern Egypt, and which the Egyptians themselves named Henen Nesut, meaning the house of the royal child. Archaeologists do not know when Henen Nesut was established, but a reference to it on the Palermo Stone, so-called because it is now kept in an archaeological museum of the city of Palermo in Italy, shed some light on the matter. An ancient fragment of inscribed diorite, the Palermo Stone, provides information which is dismissed as mythological by Egyptologists, just as the Turin Kings List that I spoke of just a few days ago, of some 120 pre-dynastic kings said to have ruled in Egypt prior to 3000 BC. But it also gives details of the early dynastic period which Egyptologists accept as historical. An entry on the stone dating to the reign of Den, the second king of the first dynasty, suggests strongly that the origins of Heracleopolis, Henennesut, go very far back into pre-dynastic period. But Henennesut is just where the trail begins, because it turns out it was closely associated with the ancient religious center of Memphis, which stands about 60 miles further north and was, according to legends, established by Menes, the first king of the first dynasty, although again its origins are likely to be far earlier. It is therefore of interest, as Yves Raymond, the translator of the Edfu building text, observes that it is impossible to read the principal Edfu records and not be struck by the very pronounced Memphite background and tone that is still preserved in them. In her view, the Edfu text preserve the memory of a pre-dynastic religious center which once existed near Memphis, a center which the Egyptians looked on as the homeland of the Egyptian temple. Note, she is not saying which once existed in Henennesut, nor even in Memphis itself, but rather near Memphis. In short, the location is a bit of a mystery. Raymond supposes that archaeology has not yet identified it, but wherever it was believed to be a place carefully selected by the gods for the foundation of the first of the new generation of temples dedicated to the god Horus, the essential opening gambit in the long-term project to recreate the destroyed former world. And so what he is suggesting, obviously, is that Henennesut is the Great Pyramids, and I believe in Memphis there is a great history of exactly what went on in the pre-dynastic periods up at Giza. I just thought I would mention that, and that, again, is from Magicians of the Gods, a book I highly suggest for anybody interested in ancient history. Now here is a picture coming from about 100 years ago of some of the remains in ancient Memphis. I think some of these old black and white photos coming from about 100 years ago are pretty cool, but not much to see here. Not much was left even back then, but we have lost a lot of ancient sites just to progress. And here is the town built around just a few of the remains of ancient Memphis, just a few of the temple foundations set up by pharaohs through 2,500 plus years of history. One of the most famous things is the giant colossus of Ramses II, the statue. I believe it's over 40 feet tall, and it sits in a museum on the site of ancient Memphis. And I made a video about this last winter, and I will leave the link for this video here below. Now, going back to Google Earth, one thing I have stated is that the pharaohs were privy to some secrets of ancient Egypt, and I just wanted to show you this. The Ramses II and III and IV, who set up shop here at Memphis, I believe they were all indoctrinated into the secrets of ancient Egypt, and this is called the sarcophagus of Anubis. And we have, it seems like, the god Thoth and Horus and a few of the more important gods of ancient Egypt on this symbolic sarcophagus of Anubis. And at the very front of it here, I just want to show you what it looks like. Oop, if I can get to the right pic. This is what the ancient gods, or who the ancient gods are in honor of on this sarcophagus of Anubis. And this is what I believe is what we call the Sphinx today. And people have said, you know, the lion and the Sphinx, the most important statue coming from ancient Egypt, where is it depicted on temple walls and tombs and sarcophagus? It isn't there. But what we do have is Anubis all over the place, and I've showed you how he is depicted just like this in many different places. He was the guardian of the necropolis, and here is Ramses III, his intricate sarcophagus, and I believe this is at the Louvre in Paris. And on the side of it here, on this side, what you have, I believe, is the Book of the Hidden Chambers, and this depicts the soul's journey through the Umduat, and something happens during each hour of that journey of the soul through the Umduat. And on the front here is the god Nepsis, And here, you know, people have said, where is that most important statue coming from Egyptian history? The lion, it's not anywhere. Well, people, it's right in front of us everywhere. And here is Anubis in the posture of the Sphinx with the Great Pyramid right behind him, and maybe the causeway right here. It couldn't be any clearer. The people looking for real history have been failed greatly on the history of the Sphinx. Here is just another depiction of Anubis as the guardian of the necropolis. He was Lord of Rostau, which is Giza, till about, I believe, the 3rd or 4th dynasty, when the Lord of Giza became Osiris. But the original Sphinx, it couldn't be any clearer to me. We have it depicted. The ancient Egyptians tell us what the Sphinx was originally, and here it is. Just thought I would point that out. So this is the history, a brief history of ancient Memphis. A few of the looks, and I will leave some links below. But my time has run out and I got to get going. Hope you thought this was interesting, and you all have a nice day.